But right now we got Shelley Ann Clark on the line on the Skype from Ottawa. Shelley, great to have you on the show.
Hi, Shelley.
Hello, everyone. So glad that we finally got it all sorted out. This is the book that by now has gone around the world. It has been sent to key contacts all around the world because they are having the same problems that we're having in this country. The reason I wrote the book is that many people complained that they could not retain all the information I was giving them when I was guest speaking across the country. There was so much information to give out that it was absolutely impossible for people to retain it all, or for me to even take deep dents into the history and why the book was called The Sale of a Country.
Okay, Shelley, before we get into that, like the book's called The Sale of a Country, and just tell us, like give people an introduction, what was your role in the free trade negotiations that gave you the insider view, that gave you the information to write this book? I think it's important that people know that.
I was the executive assistant to the third highest negotiator. Now, usually it would have been Simon Reisman, the number one, that would have been dealing with Mulroney. But in this case, I had a hands-on everything because Mulroney actually parachuted in this Frenchman to do his dirty work. And because of that, I was in the office at midnight at night, shredding documents that they didn't want the provincial premiers to see. I was the main contact. I was the center of the communications center for all other government departments, especially senior level department officials from the Privy Council office, from the Prime Minister's office, from the Minister's office at the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. If anyone wanted any information, I was the person that they had to call. This created a lot of jealousy and upset within the office because it should have all gone through Simon Reisman, which was one of the first things that made me suspicious at what was going on, because there is a chain of command in these high-level offices where Simon Reisman would have been the level of the minister, and of course the Prime Minister, if he needs information, goes to the minister level, and the minister, if he doesn't have the answer, goes to his deputy minister. So this person that was third down the line, I discovered shortly, a few months after he was there, that he had actually been parachuted in to do Mulroney's dirty work.
Okay, so Shelley Ann, before we get any further, so just to be clear, just because it's a while ago now that the free trade went down, people may not remember it, and we got a whole new generation that is not even aware of it. But Simon Reisman, he was the chief negotiator for Canada, is that right?
That's correct, he was.
Now, and you were the secretary for this third person who was, they were from France?
No, he was from Montreal. He was a Montrealer. Of course, that explains why he was such a good buddy of Brian's. And he was French, and he came on board after there was an orchestrated event by many people, which I believe was orchestrated, complaining that at the top level positions in the Canada-USA Free Trade Negotiations Office, it was all Englishmen that were in charge. So after the fuss through the media that there was no one French there, Mulroney parachuted in this person by the name of Germain Denis, and I was handpicked to be his executive assistant because of my years. I had already been some 25 years with the diplomatic corps. So I had a top secret security clearance, and I was used to dealing with difficult, high-ranking people. So I went to the interview thinking that there would be other people interviewed, but I was in the interview 2 minutes when I was asked, when can you start? Can you start tomorrow?
So they already had it in the fixing. It was already fixed that you would get the job. You just didn't know it. Okay.
I just didn't know it. I just realized it after I was there, and I got it in 2 minutes flat.
Wow.
Well, that's pretty good. Well, so they parachuted you in too.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Yes, I was parachuted in. I was working for the United Nations ambassador, Douglas Roche at the time, who was our UN ambassador in New York City, representing our position on disarmament. So it was difficult for me to leave a very good position that I really enjoyed, but I was offered a serious
Amount of money.
promotion. Not money directly, but a senior position and promotion at the end of it all. So in order to advance my career further, I accepted the job. And it was shortly thereafter that I realized that something was very, very wrong with our computer systems. Because we were doing top secret memoranda to the Prime Minister and to all cabinet members, no one who didn't have a top secret clearance could have access to those. What I discovered was one evening when one of the ministers needed a document that was on a secretary's desk, I did not have the password to get in, and I went to the person who brought in the GIAC system, and what he told me would have shaken every Canadian is when he said, well, the president of GIAC is the only one that has the God password, and I will call him up and I will get you the document that the minister needs. With that information, this was on a Friday night. On the Monday morning, I met with our top security people and told them that I was highly suspicious of this system because this was a private business. No one in private business should have had this God password that he called that had access. It was confirmed to me that with that God password, the president of this company had access to all the documents on all 110 computers in the Free Trade Office, including Simon Reisman's. So I demanded that they start investigating to know who the president was of this company. The security people told me that no, it wasn't worth an investigation. I was imagining all this, but I didn't give up. I went to the second in command, to Simon. I went to Mr. Gordon Ritchie, and Gordon Ritchie, who was a very brilliant man and very honest, had nothing to do with the wrongdoings that were going on in that office. I stress that. Ordered them to do an investigation. The report that came back informed us that the president of that GIAC corporation that had the God password was an American, using a Canadian company as a front for what they were doing. So Gordon Ritchie invited the top executives of GIAC to come and meet with me in Ottawa, and he told me that I was to make the decision after I spoke with them as to whether or not that system should stay or go. They had already, the federal government had already spent 1.2 million on that system, and back in 1986 that was a lot of money. I mean, today it would be nothing, but back then that was a lot of money. So I met Gordon Ritchie, loaned me his executive meeting boardroom, And I met with these people for 2 hours. And at the end of the 2 hours, with all their technical jargon, I told them, I said, gentlemen, I'm only interested in one thing. A, confirm to me that your president can access every computer in the Free Trade Office, in the Canadian Free Trade Office, and B, that if GX set up an office across the street from us, they would have access to all our top secret documents and to all our strategies on the free trade documents. And I stood up and they said, yes, you're absolutely right. He does have, they confirmed that he did have the access, and that if they set up across the street, they would have been able to have all of our negotiating tactics to pass on to the Americans should they wish to do so. So with that, Gordon Ritchie ordered the entire system to be removed. And that was such a big thing at the time that actually, for once, our mainstream media functioned decently and properly and reported the entire incident on their front page. So bravo for the time when we had such a mainstream media, because now they will report on earthquakes, which are important, but they will not report on how piece by piece this country has been sold out. My book was written because my whistleblowing was falling on deaf ears. And when Dee Nicholson put that as the main title for the book review when she reviewed it, that was so appropriate. So I decided to make a list of everything that, of all the wrongdoings that had occurred while I was at the Free Trade Office, and how it sold us off piece by piece.
Okay, Shelley Ann, before you get into that, I just want to ask you, like, who was behind, so what you're saying essentially is that the free trade agreement that we ended up with was essentially a selling out of the country?
Yes.
And who was behind that? Who was...
Mulroney.
Well, who?
Well,
Shelley Ann.
behind Mulroney, there would be the Trilateral Commission and the three most important families who want to have a one world government. We have three families that created this Trilateral Commission, and you would not believe the number of Canadian ministers that are on that list. When the Bilderbergs have a meeting here in Canada, there's a reason for it.
They actually meet here in Canada?
Well, they have met here in Canada.
Yeah, they have met in Toronto, and
Wow.
their next meeting, I didn't get a chance to read my email, but I got a notice that they were meeting in Canada again, but I'm not sure where because I didn't have the time to read the email.
Okay, Shelley Ann, so in your experience during the Free Trade Agreement, did you see any evidence to suggest that these families or the Trilateral Commission or any other groups, non-Canadian groups, were directly involved? Did you see any actual evidence of that?
No, I did not. I did not see their names on any document. I own what has brought us to the conclusion of this one world government is that free trade opens up the door for that. And some of the documents that I was reading, even though back in 1986 through to 1995, the words one world government were never used on any document that I ever saw. That the confirmation that they were behind it came to me in 1995. I read a document at Foreign Affairs. I was working for the United Nations World Summit on social development, which means that you are working to eliminate poverty. But that is not so, because from the documents that I read and the book that was written and published by Oxford University clearly states that to achieve a one world government, they have to get rid of the middle class. Why do they want to get rid of the middle class? Because we have enough money to survive, so we're not spending our time trying to wonder where our next meal is going to be, and we have the time to take on battles. And since I've taken on this battle since 1987, I have to tell you that it's all middle class people that have contacted me that want to take this country back and that are willing to fight for it.
Shelley, I have two questions for you. First, Mulroney, was he aware of the plan, or was he just a puppet, or did he consciously take part in this? And number two, have you been threatened in any way? Has your life been threatened, or do you feel that your safety is compromised in any way?
I'll answer your first question first.
Okay.
About me. Since Brian Mulroney should have been speaking with Simon Reisman and not my boss, who was the third one down the line, I have to assume that he was very much involved, because I was never allowed to take a lunch break in case the Prime Minister called my boss. And I had to find my boss wherever he was when the Prime Minister called. Now, to have the Prime Minister contact the third one down the line directly is not the normal chain of command. So that raised red flags. And for question number two, I've almost died twice since I started blowing the whistle. The first time was in Vienna, Austria. What the Department of Foreign Affairs did is that I filed a complaint so that I could use the resources and the tools of my union, because we're all unionized when you're in the federal government. I believed that the union was going to be my tool to bring the information about the sale of our country to people who would then take it to the RCMP for investigation to do something about it. Imagine my shock, and you will see that in my book. A letter, I left the union with a complete report on all the activities that were going on in the Free Trade Office, all the wrongdoings, and I gave them all the evidence they needed to go to the RCMP. When I brought the document to them, they insisted that 4 of them met me at 8 o'clock in the morning. And by 8:30, I had been told to go home, that they would have to bring this to the president of the union because they didn't know what to do with it. It was too explosive. 24 hours later, a messenger, a courier service arrived at my door, and they returned my document with a cover letter telling me to destroy it, as it would be highly dangerous for anyone involved. So they ordered me to destroy it immediately. But I didn't. I figured that if I was going to be in any trouble, I would at least have the evidence to show why I was in trouble. The second thing the union did is, well, first of all, they did not go to the RCMP. They did not report it to anyone. The second thing they did is they negotiated with Foreign Affairs to send me out of the country. Brian Mulroney, apparently, it was reported to me by the number 2 at the union that Brian Mulroney contacted the union and ordered them to meet with him ASAP. When they met with him, they said, listen, we want Foreign Affairs to give her the promised promotion, and number 2, we want Foreign Affairs to keep her out of the country for at least 8 years. So you do what you have to do and make sure that Foreign Affairs gets her out of Canada for the next 8 years. I guess that was going to buy them time, you see.
Did that happen? Did that happen?
Yes, it did. The first offer I was given, I turned it down. The first offer was to a third world country. And I was brought into a meeting in a boardroom with only one head of human resources, who showed me slides that I was going to be made the ambassador, because they believed that, of course, I would never refuse being an ambassador somewhere, to a third world country. And as the ambassador, I would have the chauffeur and the cooks and all that goes with it.
So they tried to entice you.
They tried to entice me. But what turned me off was when I got the piece of information that one mistake, the food, first of all, I would be given money from the Treasury Board Secretariat. They're the people that hand out the money to the government when the budget is created. They give each department the money that is required, and there's some of that money at Foreign Affairs that is slotted as bribe money, because in those third world countries, when the Canadian aircraft would land to deliver our Canadian food, it would be taken over by soldiers, and we had to bribe the soldiers with money to get our food off the plane. And if you were unsuccessful, well, you had to do without. Still, there was the danger that a lot of the food that was brought in by the locals would be used, and if it wasn't washed a certain way with a certain product and you ate it, you would die of some kind of poisoning that would show up as natural causes. So when I was given all that information, I figured, boy, what a nice and neat way to get rid of me. One of the cook will accidentally put the wrong stuff on my food, and in 48 hours I'll be dead. So I absolutely, no matter what threats, because they said, if you don't accept this assignment, Shelley Ann, you're going to lose your job. You know, you're not going to be able to stay. You're gonna lose your job. And I said, well, then I'll lose my job, because I am not going to go to a third world country. So then Mulroney got involved again, and it took 1 year for my union to negotiate that I could go to a Western world country where everything was supposed to be safe. The food was supposed to be safe, like Vienna, Austria. They said that's a beautiful place in Vienna, Austria. You know, you'll be fine there. Your food doesn't have to be prepared in any special way. What they did not tell me, and I found out after I was there, is that the ambassador that they sent me to work for was a CSIS agent, one of our Canadian Services Intelligence Service, were the people, was the ambassador that was in place to work with me over there. But when I arrived there, I was not aware of that information. And I guess 1 month after my arrival, the ambassador threw a big reception in my honor. And at that reception, I was assigned a military colonel to look after me. And he kept serving me my drinks and my food. When I went home that night, I got violently ill, and I thought, oh well, it was just, you know, mixing drinks or having food that had gone bad or something. But I went to see a doctor, and I was only allowed to see an Austrian doctor. I was not allowed to see a Canadian doctor that was at the immigration office or the American doctor that was at the American embassy. So a doctor would give me medication and I would get worse and worse. After 4 weeks of this, I was passing out all over the place. I couldn't even hold a cup of coffee in my hand. I couldn't go into work. I was passing out all over my apartment. So I finally called Ottawa, and I was fortunate enough that my assignment officer, who was a woman who obviously was aware of my situation, told me to hold tight, that she was going to send a Canadian doctor to look into my situation. When that Canadian doctor arrived, he saw $700 worth of medication on my floor. And when he checked the contents, all the medication that had been given to me had been aimed at bringing down my potassium level to 0. And once you're at 0, you die. So the Canadian doctor reported back to Ottawa, and my human resources officer contacted me immediately and said, you're not to touch anything that they give you, and we're going to have this doctor put you on your feet, and we're going to send you airline tickets for you and your 2 sons, and we're going to bring you back on an emergency flight. Well, it took 2 days to bring me up so I could even stand to get to the airport. And then the doorbell rang, and they had sent the administrator that worked for that ambassador. And he looked very, very nervous, and he could not look me in the eye, but extremely upset. So I said to him, what's going on? He said, well, I don't know how to tell you this, but I have no choice. My job is on the line. That you have here 3 tickets to bring you and your 2 sons back to Ottawa tomorrow morning. But I cannot give you the tickets unless you sign a letter stating that you will not blame the federal government for what you have suffered over here in Vienna, for your bad health. So I wanted to live because of my 2 kids. So I signed the letter saying that they were not to blame for my condition, and I was flown back to Ottawa. I was flown into the Ottawa Civic Hospital, and I had some friends waiting for me there, and after they spoke to the doctor, it was confirmed that if I had stayed there an additional 24 hours, my potassium would have been at 0, and I would have been brought back to Ottawa in a body bag. So that's only one of the many stories I have, because it could take all day. There's so much. I am writing a book on all of it, and it's going to be called Fighting Shadows.
Okay, Shelley Ann, we don't have a lot of time left here, but this was a while back when the free trade went through. What's your assessment of where we are as a country now? And you also mentioned that this is happening in other countries.
Yeah.
It's not just Canada that this is happening to, but everywhere. What's your assessment of the situation today with Stephen Harper, the current Prime Minister?
Well, my assessment is that Stephen Harper is more dangerous than all the other prime ministers that we've had.
And why is that?
Because definitely there has been evidence of him meeting with the 3 families, and especially he's always invited to the Bilderberg meetings. And in my book, it will give you a list of everything that we have lost in this country since the free trade has occurred. People are trying to tell you, oh, the Canada-USA free trade agreement with Canada was, that's old news, it's water under the bridge. Well, it isn't water under the bridge. I lay out in the book everything. We've lost our sovereignty. They have, we have lost, we're losing our water, we're harmonizing our health care, and there's a whole list. So this book actually gives you a checklist of everything that has been done since the free trade went through. So please don't believe anyone when they tell you that it's water under the bridge and it's old news.
From what you Shelley, from what you described to me, it sounds like it's not just about the sale of Canada is not just about the free trade agreement. It's about the sale of Canada to a one world government, correct?
Yes.
So it's beyond just the free trade agreement.
Shelley, what can we do about it?
What can we do about it?
Yeah.
Well, that's the unfortunate part, because I don't have the funding, to travel across the country and to motivate people that if we don't do something in the next year, then we'll never be able to do something about it. The time is now before everything goes through. Stephen Harper has just signed that agreement with China, a free trade agreement with China, that is compromising all of our security systems. We're going to be spied on by everyone. Now, it would take not 1,000 or 2,000 people to gather on Parliament Hill or to have not riots, but to have gatherings everywhere in the country and demand change. Start at the provincial level, because they're involved. Like the Calgary, Alberta that I knew back in the 90s when I was speaking there has completely changed. Because as you know, Stephen Harper comes from Alberta, and that entire province has completely gone blue, and they're backing up everything. So every province would have, the people in each province would have to get together. We need several million people to make a difference.
I'm not sure if, Shelley, I'm not sure if you mentioned, but did you actually mention the name of the three families? Did I miss that? The names of because maybe if people looked up the families as well, it might give people some information as to what's going on besides reading your book.
Yes, well, there is the Rothschild.
The Rothschilds?
Yeah, the Rockefellers.
The Rockefellers.
And the Bilderbergs.
And the Bilderbergs. Okay, so those are the three families. I think that if people read your book and look up these families, they'll probably be able to put, two and two together.
Shelley, listen, so I guess one of the things people can do is read your book and get informed about what happened, and give them some ideas about what they might be able to do. Is that right?
Yes, because in the book there is an open letter to the Prime Minister, and that letter has the checklist of everything that's gone wrong in this country. And with that checklist, they should be able to form groups and fight the individual items. Like our justice system is a just us system, for example. And what about the water? What they're rerouting our water to the states.
Okay, Shelley, how can people get their hands on the book?
Okay, they can, if they want an autographed copy, they can write to H as in Harry, F as in Frank, C as in Canada, 2420 Bank Street, BANK, suite number 44, Ottawa, Ontario, K1V 8, S as in Sam 1, Canada. The price is $40 for the autographed copy. But if they don't feel that they want an autographed copy, they can go to the Ex Libris. It's orders at exlibris.com. And Ex Libris is spelled XLIBRIS. So if you visit the Ex Libris website, there is a section of it that's to order books. And the book number, I will give it to you. I think I have it here. I have it somewhere. Oh dear. It's an ISBN number that you need to order it. ISBN 978 4653-4140-2.
Okay, and Shelley, do you have a website or something where people can get in touch with you or see your work?
Yes, well, I will give you an email address and a website. I have a blog called Shelley Ann Clark Speaks Out.com, and I have an email address that's ShelleyAnn.Clark, the number 3, @gmail.com.
Okay.
So they're welcome to email me with any question. If they didn't get the information and want to know how to get the book, I'll be only too happy to provide them whatever information they ask for.
Okay, Shelley Ann, great to have you on the show today. Too bad we didn't do this in person, but maybe next time, we'll have less trouble with the train schedules and that sort of thing.
But thank you, Shelley Ann, for being such a valiant soul and being a whistleblower on behalf of Canada and for putting your life at risk and doing what you're doing. Thank you.